Thank you, Pete. Questions?
Thanks, sir. Progressives are calling for primary challengers for some of these moderates that aren't on board with things like voting rights, things like eliminating the filibuster in the Senate. What do you say to Democrats who are elected officials in office that are being called to be primaried?
Well, I think right now, my focus and the focus of many members of the House Democratic Caucus is just making the case for why every single senator, Democratic and Republican senators, should support voting rights, should support the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Joe Manchin Freedom to Vote Act. And hopefully, my colleagues in the Senate who are talking directly to their colleagues in the Senate Democratic Caucus will be able to be successful in prevailing upon them that a rules change is necessary. Respect the Constitution, not senatorial custom. The Constitution is pretty clear. The framers of the Constitution understood the word supermajority. These are highly enlightened, educated individuals. They understood that word. They put it in the Constitution 4 times. 4 times. To amend the Constitution and pass a constitutional amendment, supermajority. Ratify a treaty, supermajority. Override a presidential veto, supermajority. Convict the president who's been impeached by the House, supermajority. Pass legislation to impact the American people, simple majority. This is not really complicated, folks. This is a Senate custom that was birthed by Jim Crow segregationists. So I think the most productive thing that we can do right now is keep the focus on making the substantive arguments, because we have a strong substantive case to be made, and let's leave the politics for another day. We'll switch sides.
If those appeals to Senators Manchin and Sinema are unsuccessful and they vote against these vote changes, what should the next step be? Where should congressional Democrats go from there?
Well, let's let the process play itself out over the next day or so. I've got great confidence in Leader Schumer, as well as my colleagues, particularly Senator Warnock and Senator Booker, and those colleagues who are close to Senators Manchin and Sinema, who are continuing to talk to them about finding a way to lift up voting rights in America. We'll switch. Yeah.
What specific actions has the Biden administration and Democrats taken over the past year that do you think are the most meaningful to American lives?
Well, President Biden has had a very good year under incredibly difficult circumstances. 6.4 million good-paying jobs have been created during Joe Biden's first year. That's a presidential record. The American Rescue Plan was passed. It saved state and local governments in blue states and red states all across America. That means that public health, public safety, public education, public transportation, public housing, and the provision of the public good all across America rescued because of President Biden's leadership. When President Biden took office, there were 2 million Americans fully vaccinated. 1 year later, 200 million Americans plus who are fully vaccinated. The American Rescue Plan contained the historic child tax credit, a massive tax cut for families with children that lifted almost half of American children who were in poverty out of poverty. The American Rescue Plan stood up a public health infrastructure that has enabled us to deal with the variants that we've seen over the last year, including Delta and now Omicron, with far less deaths than we would have otherwise experienced. We got into the Paris Climate Accord that Donald Trump had recklessly exited. And we passed, because of President Biden's leadership, a bipartisan infrastructure agreement that will create millions of good-paying jobs moving forward in urban America, rural America, suburban America, small-town America, and Appalachia by fixing our crumbling bridges, roads, tunnels, airports, water and sewage system, mass transportation systems. For the last several years, prior to President Biden's leadership, we had infrastructure week every other week, and nothing ever happened. But under President Biden's leadership, America will now have a first-class infrastructure for the 21st century. Let's put some respect on Joe Biden's name. President Biden has had a very good first year under very difficult circumstances.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask about the